Well, hello there. I'm Chris Angel, and my pronouns are they, them. Welcome to Allyship is a Verb, a podcast for people practicing allyship for the LGBTQ plus community and beyond.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Miner, and I use she, her pronouns.
If you've been around here for a while, you may recognize the name. It was inevitable, right? I name drop her fairly often on this podcast, and we've talked about it before, and she just laughs whenever she listens. But I digress. Rebecca is a gender specialist, consultant, parent coach, therapist, trainer, runs groups, and so much more, and most importantly, is one of my best friends. She's got tons of resources I hope you'll check out too. We met online in 2021, and our first official virtual hang was that December. And as I've mentioned before, being my friend is dangerous. The next thing you know, we're organizing panels and summits together because by that March, we were running a panel event for Trans Day of Visibility, which you can catch in the first season. And we're maybe in the process of organizing a summit together. The domain name has been purchased, so it's possible. Stay tuned. Our conversation ended up being like 2 hours long, so I was cussing myself out in post-production trying to get it under an hour. This was not easy, folks, although I did do it to myself. That said, let's get to the self-reflection questions for you to think about during our chat. Number 1. If I've watched Sesame Street, what have I thought about Bert and Ernie's relationship? Number 2. When I hear of the term lifestyle, what do I think of first? Number 3. Do I believe that healing should happen in isolation? And now, our conversation. You have a voice made for radio and podcasting.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I might leave that in. Okay. All right. You are neuroqueer, femme, Jewish, and you put this in, so I'm reading it out, okay? Chris Angel's #1 fan. What?
I did.
You did put that in. As a sidebar for folks listening, I ask folks ahead of time what identities they think are most important for folks to know while listening to our conversation. And that's what she put in. So I did not insert that. She put it there, so I'm just reading it.
Absolutely true.
Yep. So there we are. And if anyone wants to challenge her, I welcome that, and we will organize an event. Anyway, I have zero ego, so this is hysterical. Okay, what do those intersections mean to you?
Well, now I'm just thinking about the latter.
We can start there.
I mean, mostly I put that there because A, I did not know it would be part of the podcast episode and just thought I was being cute and funny. But also, I am a big fan and I love the podcast. And I'm so glad we're finally here after who knows how long. So this is our big moment.
It is.
In terms of the identities that I typically share.
Yes.
I think about the language of neuroqueer femme. In part, neuroqueer is just faster and easier to say than neurodivergent and queer. I used to say I was a queer cisgender woman. That language, as of late, has felt less connected to me. And my understanding of my queerness, now that I understand this, it's hard to separate my neurodivergence from my queerness. So I see them as inextricably linked, which is why I like the term kind of nestled together that way. And femme really speaks to what I see as a really powerful lineage of incredible people, some of whom identify as women, some of whom are trans women, some of whom are non-binary, whatever the case may be. But it felt like a better term for how I feel.
And then I guess, did you want to mention anything about your connection to being Jewish?
Right. Yes. So I make an intentional point of including that in my bio and on my website, mostly because Jews have been erased for so long. And so while I'm not a devout, practicing, very religious person, I feel deeply connected to my cultural sense of being a Jew. And like I said, more than anything, it just feels like an important thing to name so that starts to feel like something that's okay.
Absolutely. And as you were sharing that, and when you mentioned the piece about erasure, I would argue a lot of the identities you carry, that's been something that's been part, and I see you like nodding your head. Yeah, that's been something that's been part of a lot of those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, yeah, is there anything you would want to share about that in particular?
Having you reflect that back makes a lot of sense. As I'm hearing it, I'm like, oh, good point. Yeah, I think especially understanding my neurodivergence just in the last year or so, really. And I'm 33 for context. So there were a lot of years there where I didn't fully understand that. So there were some missing pieces there. And then certainly erasure around my queerness, especially being someone who spent many years as a strong ally and missed the memo myself on just how queer I was. There was absolutely erasure there. And then the challenge of not always feeling accepted in queer spaces because I am in a relationship. I'm married to a cis man.
Yes, and that's definitely something that's come up on the podcast a lot, especially for people who use terms like bi or pansexual. It's interesting because for folks who've maybe listened to, I don't know, the past couple of more recent episodes, I've also been sharing more about my being neuroqueer. And like you said, I love a good shortcut to like kind of get to the point, and obviously holding space for more nuance there and how I see myself in that. But similar to you, you and I joke in our friendship a lot about pipelines, like the ally to queer pipeline, or in
Mm-hmm.
my case, when someone is neuroqueer, typically they enter from one side and then figure out the other side of it, right? And so that's
Absolutely.
a whole pipeline. So I did the like queer to neurodivergent pipeline because similar to you, I'm going to be 36 this year, and I only figured it out within the past couple of years because of TikTok. That
Mm-hmm.
scary ass algorithm was just like, your ass is ADHD. And then I, stuck it out a bit on there. And then it's like, oh, and you're autistic.
It was like, psst, by the way. Yeah.
You make a great point because another relationship I'm seeing that's similar for both of us too is that, these identities are also super duper stigmatized.
Mm,
And so the same way we quote unquote self-diagnose as queer or trans or anything under the LGBTQ plus umbrella, a lot of us also have to do that with neurodivergence because supposed testing for that, like even just talking ADHD and autism, and you're like, hell no,
right.
bitch. I can see you shaking your head in that way.
I was going
Yeah.
to say, I have to remember, and people can't see my face, so I'll give you more verbal nods. Yes.
It's okay. You can give me both. I'm working with it. But it's really interesting. And yeah, I know for myself, the amount of ableism I've been experiencing, systemically and otherwise has been ridiculous. Like it's something that's always been on my radar because as a
Mhm.
leader, that's been part of my leadership is making sure that I'm understanding how other people can access a space or not and like what I'm doing to either block that or facilitate them being able to attend if they want. I'm wondering if that's something that has been your experience too. Have you been experiencing any ableism or
I think my awareness of it has dramatically increased as I've started to recognize these things about myself and about my clients. I see it so much more. One way I control for that is I work for myself. That frees me up a lot, I think, from probably what I would experience much more of in the workplace. If I was working at a community mental health agency or something where they were like, we have these expectations of how many people you see in a day and how fast you finish documentation and all these things. But certainly, and I'm noticing it more and more. And part of that is the unmasking process too, of realizing, like, oh, wait, I actually have way more sensory issues than I ever realized, and like how to accommodate for those.
and something that I've begun to hate, and yes, that's extreme, but I'm going to say it, is that I feel like every time I talk about unmasking, I have to clarify not the pandemic kind. I'm not
Right.
hiding myself for other people to accept me, either because of my queerness or especially because of my neurodivergence, like trying
Absolutely.
to fit in.
Yeah.
So knowing that you're a parent coach and a therapist, but also more specifically a gender specialist, and watching the evolution of that with you and how you choose to share it with people and some of the hesitations you've had about claiming that, like, yeah, I'm
Hmm.
curious if you could just elaborate a little bit more on what that means and how you work with people.
The way that I view what I do as a gender specialist is that I partner with queer and trans youth in their journey of becoming and am a guide to their parents in affirming it. What that looks like on a day to day basis is individual and group therapy sessions with my clients. And then I moved more into this parent coaching space when I realized that there was only so much I could do for young people if they weren't getting the support that they needed at home. And there were so many parents that really wanted to show up for their kid, but didn't know how, or were having some of their own stuff get in the way. So that's when I kind of pivoted a bit and added that as a service that was available to folks.
Because, of my ADHD brain, my ass while you're talking, I was like, oh, she provides wraparound services. Because, like,
Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about it that way, right?
yeah,
The days of in-home therapy and that kind of social work are over for me, but
yes.
that's true. One could call this a wraparound service in a way.
It's a unique niche,
Mm-hmm. It is certainly a
something
niche.
for everyone in the family. Yeah,
Yeah. Cue the music.
we're just working on your marketing now. Anyway, you've been posting lots of silly, sassy, and educational reels on your Instagram, and it looks like you're having lots of fun as you're recording those and posting those. But what's your relationship with social media actually like?
It's a really good question. The truth is, I am having fun when I make those videos. That is genuine. It really ties in. Like, I have a long background in theater and performance. So that part of me really has a fun time doing that. And then there is the other side of feeling like there is this kind of push to keep feeding the algorithm and keep building. And it's something that I'm constantly kind of reassessing and evaluating around, like, what feels most aligned with who I am and how I want to show up, but also what people need and also how I make an impact. Because the real reason I started kind of hustling on Instagram was because I wanted to put a book out for parents. And when I tried to do that, the feedback I got was that people didn't know who I was yet. And so until I had a bigger audience, they simply didn't think it would sell enough. So I was like, okay, well, I want to help parents and I believe in the work that I'm doing. So I need to get myself out there as, as I don't feel comfortable with this terminology, but, thought leadership.
Yeah.
But some of it is purely just because I think it's hilarious. And I'm sure I crack myself up far more than other people.
What's funny is, like, I can tell too when you're like, I think I'm funny, like, I can tell those moments, and I love it because I genuinely do think you're really funny. Like, I
Well,
eat
thank
that
you.
shit up. You're welcome. And so it's great. And I don't know, as you've been on this journey to growing your platforms and everything, especially Instagram, I just hear like Katy Perry's roar in the background as your like anthem or something.
I love it. I'll take it.
Well, when you first posted on September 2nd of 2019, so you're like
Whoa.
pretty new.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea that present day you'd have over 8,000 followers?
No, no. And it's really, really weird even to hear you say that just now. I was like, wait, I do?
Yeah, I just checked. I just opened it because I wanted to make sure.
No, 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 no. When I started it, I was like, oh, I should probably have a place that's like a concentrated kind of resource, almost like a Pinterest board to like stick stuff that I thought was cool or that I thought would be helpful to folks. And initially, I was just reposting other things that I saw that I thought would be of benefit, and then really started building from there. So yeah, that's interesting. That's been the timeline. I don't often stop and think about that. The first 5,000 was the first 1,000 was the worst.
Yeah.
Because it's like, am I just posting things to the void? It's certainly gotten easier to, things pick up with more traction. And more than anything, I love the fact that I can collaborate with other people and I can share things from folks, the opportunity to uplift other people's work is the most important thing to me about having that reach. I don't feel like 8,000 people are here because they love me. They're here because they want to learn something, and they're here to like witness all kinds of other people's work that I can like wrap in. And so, yeah, I see it much more as a community.
And those are hard to build online, and especially just to get engagement.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially when I talk about what I talk about, like it's like womp womp, like trans kids are dying. And it's like, well, that's a real bummer. Like that's not like an easy, like, ooh, follow.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit of a tough sell at times in a niche interest area. Like I see other therapists who are like just sharing kind of general tips or like, here's a coping skill. And like, I could totally do that and probably have many more followers, but I'm not interested.
Some of what you've previously done on your Instagram is define terms for parents and for other folks stumbling across your Instagram, just so that they can be exposed to new language to help, explain our community's different experiences. But an ongoing joke we've had, and, something I've been even having a quandary about, is just like how we may need words to help us explain our experiences and to find community, but also just feels like it's getting out of control sometimes. There was this point in your timeline that you just kept posting so many that I'd never heard of before. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to stop? It just felt like this water hose on full blast. I wasn't like upset with you. I was just like, whoa.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, where I get stuck is I don't know how we decide as a community when a definition needs to be expanded or when we just need a new term for something. So like, yeah, how do you navigate terms and definitions in this space?
How I navigate them is really that I believe they're only, much like diagnoses, I believe they're only as helpful as they have meaning to the person who holds them.
God, you're such a therapist. I say that with love, though. I say that with love.
I know.
There's things I'll say and people will be like, oh, you're such a social worker. And I'm like, I know.
It's so real. Yeah. If the language makes someone feel like they have a better understanding of who they are, or they're connected to a community of other people with similar experiences, then great. If it's this like many syllable, hyper nuanced word no one's ever heard of, I don't know if it's helping or not. It's funny that I know exactly what time in the timeline you're referring to of my posts. And it's because I found this one, I think it was a Tumblr post, surprise, surprise, like uncommon terminology or something.
I think one was like fictosexual or something, when you like characters.
Which that is one of my most popular blog articles on my website as well, which is fascinating. I'm like, why does that get so much traction?
See, and what's funny is like, I actually like that one because there's absolutely crushes I've had on characters from like books or shows or whatever. And it means nothing. Nothing is going to come of it. I'm sure someone here in the United States will try to figure out how to marry a character in a book or something because it just feels very on brand for us somehow.
Well, that's what the viral story happened about a man in Japan.
That's right. Oh my gosh. I know. I can't believe it didn't happen here first.
Yeah. He married a hologram.
That's what it was. Yes, a hologram.
Yeah. It's wild.
But then didn't something happen to the hologram?
Yes,
and he's like widowed, I guess.
This big question, right? Exactly, of like what is real and what isn't, and like if your hologram dies or the computer crashes or the robot you're in love with, like how do we navigate what that relationship looks like in practice? So on the flip side of the language being an important and meaningful thing for folks, I think it can also be a really distancing thing, and it can cause people who are not in the community to feel like, ugh, you people and your words. Like, I'm never going to get a hang of all of this. And you're just like making this shit up.
Well, this morning I was having a conversation with a client. I was showing them the presentation ahead of the actual event. So I can be like, here's what you're getting. Is this good? Are we good? Cool. And one of the things I highlighted specifically is that I no longer define terms, especially if I'm doing like an LGBTQ plus 101, and I say instead, here, like go to PFLAG National's glossary. Here's a whole list of them. There's a lot of great nuance. It's a, really long list. And, what you can do is just when someone shares a term with you, like, hey, I'm asexual and I just wanted to share that with you. I mean, first, I always say, like, thank the person because no one owes you their disclosure. And the other piece of that is you could ask them, and I especially train therapists to do this. I train them to say, what does that mean to you?
Always.
Yeah, because the difference is like, if I say, oh, I'm not familiar with that, can you explain it to me? That's like Google. And that doesn't feel inviting. Then it feels like I'm trying to speak on behalf of an entire community, which I can't possibly do. But I can talk about my experience. Yep. And because of like intersectionality of age, geographical location, all these other things, even if you surveyed 50 lesbians, what it means for them to be a lesbian, you might see some general themes, but some people may focus on different aspects of it. Or now, this is what broke my brain. There's been an update to the lesbian definition that it now also includes non-men. And for me, that should have been a new term. And I say that as a former lesbian in my timeline.
And you were a pretty big deal lesbian too.
Oh my God. I know. Well, when you run, I don't know. I'm just going to say this now. I ran something called the Lesbian Mafia. Yes, it's true. Yes, it was real. Yes, it was a lot of drama. No regrets. I was like, it was very inappropriate, but it's fine. We'll talk about that some other day. But that aside, and it's not for me to decide, especially since I'm not part of that community anymore, but it was part of my timeline and my history. And I don't know, like when I think of the multisexual words that are out there, the terms like bi, pan, to me, this is just me, the nuance between some of them is so minuscule. I feel like it could have just been bisexual. And generally, this is what it means, but this is how I further explain it for myself. Because some people take bi to mean like my gender and other genders. Some people mean it to be like men and women exclusively or, whatever.
Right.
That's why I'm like, well, then why did lesbian get this, in, again, my eyes, this huge expansion, but not like bi? And I think part of that's also like the PR of the bisexual community.
Certainly.
Within and without, oh my God, within and outside of
the
LGBTQ plus community. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that then trips people up in and within and out of the community. I'm like, now I can't think of anything but without.
You're welcome.
Right. But I mean, like I've had this conversation with my mom. I don't even know how many times. She's like, okay, help me one more time.
Yeah.
What's the difference between bisexual and queer? Or like what, queer is a big one, right? And queer comes up all the time. And everyone's definition is going to be different.
Yep.
People get aggravated, right? And I'm sure this happens to you in trainings too, when they're like, okay, can you define non-binary? And I'm like, well, I can give you a general sense of what that means. And every single non-binary person you talk to is going to have a slightly different variation of that. And people don't like that.
No. I feel like most of our training and educating people is just coming with like 20 million disclaimers and like, also, well, it could be this and it could be that. And I think there's a lot of great freedom in it, but especially as folks, and I say this too, when I was first starting out and recognizing I was part of the community, it was overwhelming. And we didn't have near the amount of language and everything we do today. And so it's just like, I feel grateful. I think I was at a good cutoff, if you will, of, being able to, have this as a special interest, number one. So it's been easier to keep up with, but also, yeah, to not just like have this even bigger pool that I'm diving into that can be really overwhelming and intimidating.
Absolutely. And that's where ultimately I see this work as being about being comfortable with uncertainty. Like that's what we're inviting people to do. And not everybody wants to accept the invitation.
Just say the therapist version. Just get it out of your system. I know it's sitting there.
What?
Sit in the discomfort, or I don't know, some bullshit. Just say it.
I wasn't even going to say that. I wasn't.
You were trying to tame it. I got you. Well, that all said, even with everything we just said, I'm curious, are there any specific, like LGBTQ plus specific terms you really like, even if maybe you don't personally identify with them and maybe just like them as a general concept? I think I love queer the most.
Me
Now
too.
it's probably neuroqueer, even though it's like hybrid, but like you're speaking to, it just allows a lot of freedom that like I'm just doing life differently.
Absolutely. And you can queer anything.
Yeah, sexuality wise, like in several ways. And I'm just going to say as a side note, I know that there's been a lot of bad PR also for saying that we have a lifestyle. But when you look up the definition, it's on point. Like to say someone has a gay lifestyle, again, it can, just like definitions, it can look differently for everyone. But like, I don't want to deny that we have a queer lifestyle, that, you know, it can be really important to us. Like I know it is for me.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as a queer lifestyle? Am I allowed to ask you questions?
Sure. We're in a conversation. Why not? Yeah. Especially after talking to Lena from Bopo Lena on Instagram.
Yeah. Who everyone should follow.
Yes. Amazing, amazing artwork. They're incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very expansive also in the way that they depict different things, which I appreciate. There's a lot of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And not like in a forced tokenizing way or anything. It's very casual.
No, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been talking lately about how I just see queerness and the lifestyle of queerness as this buffet. You have all these options available to you, and you can try them or not, you know, and try something out and decide it's not for you, like maybe polyamory or open relationships or whatever. But the option is there. And so just having that freedom and being able to live in that freedom, and also recognizing that things can shift across my lifetime, that's what I love. And that's how I view the queer lifestyle. Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit as friends, so let's just like go here too. But Bert and Ernie, historically, the queer community has like latched onto them as like this queer coded couple that obviously have to be together, even though they have separate beds and stuff and whatever. But like, you know, with their closeness and everything, and, you know, we just need the positive representation. So of course we'd want to latch onto that. However, I have recently evolved, because something I also don't share a lot is that I am also under the ace umbrella and definitely claim demisexual as one of my orientations. Because I've been leaning more into that and learning more about the ace community broadly, it's helped me to understand, again, especially in terms of lifestyle, that we don't have to do everything from this heteronormative perspective, that like a friendship is at the bottom and romantic and sexual relationships are at the top.
Right.
Like there doesn't need to be this hierarchy, and that friendships can be just as important.
Right.
Yeah, so to me now, I've decided to say, you know what? Like, they've got a queer lifestyle going. How amazing is it that maybe they're best friends who have chosen to live together and do life differently?
You mean Bert and Ernie?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it back to that. Yes, that's what I was meaning. But it's easier for me to see, oh yeah, I could just buy a house with my best friend and we can have a garden and be really happy. And that's like a really cool thing.
Yeah. I loved when you sent me that, because I was like, oh, wow. I mean, and I had shared with you, like, I wrote a paper in college for one of my queer theory courses on Bert and Ernie's relationship. Absolutely coded it as queer. I think, again, didn't have the language at that time, right? It was probably 2007, 2008 for the nuance of what some of that could have looked like or could be. I think it's an interesting take. I think the word lifestyle, unfortunately, has a connotation with sex that people automatically assume, as opposed to just like how one goes through their day or like who you might spend time with. I think probably because of like swinging and or just the association with promiscuity and gayness or queerness in general. I just think the word lifestyle has some interesting connotations or history but you said when you look it up, it's not that.
We'll be right back after this break. Are you the parent of a child who's questioning their gender or who has come out to you as transgender? Are you struggling with being the loving, supportive parent you want to be? If you don't know where to start or feel like you don't know how to do right by your child, you can book a free 15-minute consult with Rebecca Miner, the gender specialist, to learn more. She's a licensed clinical social worker in Boston who supports parents across the United States to affirm their LGBTQ+ children of all ages. Let her help you navigate this and support your child wherever they are in their journey. To learn more, visit genderspecialist.com/coaching. Thank you for listening. And now back to the learning. Yeah, that's the thing. It's just so stigmatized. And so my selfish hope and wish is that we as a community can just reclaim that there is a queer lifestyle. Because some of the definitions I've read are, one of them is the typical way of life of an individual, group, or culture. Mm-hmm. And another one is the way in which a person or group lives. Yeah. To me, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's like, to me, it's just like the bisexuality thing all over again. It's so stigmatized. Right. But if we can just reclaim it, because it's been used against us as something meant to be ugly. But there's lots of different lifestyles that have different names and everything. They could be sexual. And this is like really loaded, so I'm going to choose to say this carefully. But there's also people who, quote unquote, have a healthy lifestyle. I don't even want to touch that one because that's just a whole thing. But it's one we're familiar with, right?
Absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with sexuality or anything, or it could, but that's not typically how we view it. Yeah. So as a lovely pivot in our friendship, we've talked a lot about you wanting to get pregnant in the near future, and it's brought up a lot of conversations. But more specifically related to the work that you do, you've been thinking about all sorts of things like, should you explore gender creative parenting, and what should you do for name and pronouns? Where are you with that right now, and what kind of conversations are you having with people in your life?
I had a conversation with my mom, who very, very sweetly and with support was like, are you gonna like only dress your baby in beige and like we're only gonna call it neutral everything and everything? Like, it's so funny to me that people see gender creative parenting or like having any kind of neutrality as meaning that your child's life will have no color or joy.
It's like the polar opposite. When I think of gender creative parenting, I just think of excitement and joy and bright colors and options.
And like
it's
coloring outside the lines. Yeah. Yes. So we had a good laugh. I was like, no, Mom, she's following my Instagram. She's paying attention. She's like, I'm reading, I'm learning a lot.
Way to go, Mom.
Oh yeah. That raises questions for me. And people often bring those questions to me because they see me as being like the anti-gender reveal person. And I am anti-gender reveals. Again, it's that assumption that it's like genderless as opposed to genderful. And Kyle Myers talks about that, a great quote about that language exactly, of like, it doesn't have to be about reducing or minimizing. It's about giving kids options and choice. And my thinking at this point, and people of course have differing opinions about this, I am all for folks who want to do the they, them pronouns for their baby. I think where I am currently is that I will probably use multiple pronouns of whatever we think makes the most sense at the time, plus they, and see how that goes. And if at any point that doesn't feel right, or our child is able to communicate that that's not what they want, then obviously we would switch things up. But I think we can't entirely prevent how gendered our world is.
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't want to do the emotional labor every time I go to the grocery store of like, oh, is that a boy? Of being like, let me explain this to you because it's what I do all day for my job too.
Right. You're not walking around with your Venmo going, well, pay me $5 and I'll tell you.
Right. I mean, if that was the case, maybe, but
We can try that as a concept.
We could. But yeah, I think my hope as I kind of go through this process to also invite providers along with me on learning some of this stuff. I know I was telling you I had an appointment a couple weeks ago with what's considered a maternal psychiatric whatever, and they could just call it reproductive or any other neutral word, but it's still maternal.
But you're erasing women.
Well, right, and that's the thing, right? And this is the big sticking point for a lot of folks. And their paperwork automatically used she, her pronouns throughout, assuming that that's what the patient would be using, and had a, family history chart that blocked the columns of any possibility that my grandfather or brother or whomever could have had any kind of reproductive history that was worth noting. Right. And so, naturally, as I am wont to do, I edited the forms.
Yes.
Which I'm like, you're welcome for the free
labor
service. Mm-hmm. But, I crossed off that and was like, I have a sibling. You can't assume that these things aren't relevant. So it's definitely interesting. I'm seeing a lot of the like mama vibe that, I just think doesn't fit for everybody. So it's going to be a wild ride.
For those interested in learning more about Dr. Kyle Myers, we actually had a really great episode in the first season of Allyship is a Verb. So check that out. Also talks a lot about like how they navigated and how they continue to navigate like people asking, these super invasive questions and like the pushback of, won't this be confusing for the kid and stuff. So listen to that. Another thought was I had a friend who came to me and has now had 2 kids. And I don't know, I love her so much because and I know she'd be fine with me saying this, and I'm not going to use any personal identifying information, but she's, a cis-het woman, and she's just so disappointed that her kids, she has a son and a daughter, and she's just so disappointed that they're just like the most hetero, like cis normative. She was just like really hoping for some queer babies, and it just didn't happen. There's still hope. Mm-hmm. There's still hope, but
there's still hope.
I love the level of allyship there that like, she's just like, they're just so boring. Oh my
right?
God.
I was talking to a friend yesterday who was like, I mean, I'm trying to give my kid other options, but he just really likes trucks. Like, is that bad? And I was like, no, it's okay.
That's amazing.
Like, if he likes trucks, like rock on. That's totally fine.
Exactly. But that's why we had to have a conversation because, she wanted to do the right thing. And so because she wasn't doing gender creative parenting with her kids, and I don't even know if we knew it was an option at that point or something. I don't think it was on my radar yet. What we came up with was a plan for, okay, if I am announcing the birth of this child, what's the best, most inclusive way I can do it? Mm-hmm. And so we came up with, here's my daughter, disclaimer, unless she tells us otherwise. Right. And I liked that.
Until further notice.
Yeah, that's great. You're holding space for the fact that things may change. So if you're, someone listening and you're not on board with the whole gender creative parenting thing, and that's fine. And there's other ways to do it too. You don't have to give your kid a gender neutral name. You don't have to default to they, them pronouns. There's other ways to do it, just to let them know their options and give them that exploration. It doesn't, have to be to the lengths that some other folks go through. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But yeah, just being able to hold space that things can change. And it's like a teaching moment for other people too.
Absolutely. And I have so much respect for folks who really do go full in the they, them pronouns and have to go through that process every time they introduce their child or themselves or talk about it, because people do have tons of questions and they're often not always appropriate and quite invasive. It is a big task. And so in many ways, like, they're educators, and that's really important. It's going to open up people's eyes to all kinds of things that they maybe otherwise wouldn't have been exposed to. But it is a lot of effort.
Yes.
I think everyone has to decide for themselves what feels best for them and their families. Yeah, it's going to be something to explore as we go, for sure.
How do you think we build supportive environments and communities around neurodivergence? That's a big question.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm like, how long do we have?
Not very. Yeah.
Something that I think has been really incredible has been this kind of surge of people sharing from lived experience and people then being able to see that like reflected in themselves of like, oh my God, I do that thing too. And I think that's incredibly healing and important. Part of that community and support needs to be around, I'm looking for a different word from normalizing.
Normalizing's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it has the word normal in it,
I
which
know.
feels, questionable. But here we go. Stuck in the semantics
Well,
again.
it's also because, there's folks who are anti-pronouns that are like, my pronouns are normal and things like that. So it's just
true. Yes.
another word that's getting ruined for us.
But yeah, I think healing doesn't happen in isolation. Having community where people, I know you're smiling at me like, okay, therapist.
I wasn't going to interrupt you.
You were doing it.
With my eyes.
But
yeah.
Yes, you were smizing. So, but having opportunities for people to see that like there are other neurodivergent people around them who are moving through the world and holding different positions and jobs and ways of engaging, that like it's all still possible. Because I think for some people it can feel really daunting, but for a lot of folks it feels like, oh my God, that's the puzzle piece that's been under the couch for the last 20 years that I didn't even know I was missing. And then I think also just the sensory piece of being aware of what people's needs might be. Some of that is that like folks don't even know what they need. So like giving people options even of like, if we have a meeting where it's like, if you can be on screen or off screen, if like being on screen all the time doesn't work for you, and creating those options, not just for the identified person who's neurodivergent, but for everybody in the group or community or wherever it is, to be able to see like, oh yeah, I actually feel better when I'm able to stand up and move around, or I can concentrate more when I have something to fidget with, and having that be okay.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd rather someone just allow me the self-agency of turning off my camera and fidgeting and stuff and doing whatever I need to do in private to stay like in the meeting or whatever, versus like having to make a big deal out of it or have someone point it out, or especially, and I know this comes up a lot, I turn the camera back on. Well, oh, look who decided to join us today. Like, don't do stuff like that.
Right.
It's not good. Like, I get you're trying to acknowledge there's been this change, and you're going to scare me off from doing it again because you're not making it a positive, affirming experience for me. If you wanted to, you could just simply say, oh, hey, welcome back or something. Or like not even acknowledge it at all. Like, why do we even need to go there?
We don't.
Of the times I've heard you call yourself femme, be it because you're introducing yourself or something, there's a different energy about you when you really tap into that. It feels like it really is coming from a place of pride. And I'm not saying you don't feel that way about your other identities, but there is something different to when you talk about being femme. So I'm wondering, how has, for you, the concept of femme evolved over time? And what do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing femme individuals in today's society?
Oh my God, that's a really big question also.
Yeah, like, I'm not making this easy for you.
These are no softball questions.
But you've got it. You like...
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I might need you to repeat it at some point because
Sure.
my brain might take us on a journey. But first of all, thank you for noticing that. I think it's probably because it finally feels like the closest thing that feels right. In terms of how that's evolved, I think it's been kind of messy. As someone who calls themselves a gender specialist, to constantly be questioning and exploring my own relationship to gender is both important and daunting. And so there have been moments where I'm like, wait, am I this? Am I that? Like, is it this simple?
Yeah, especially when you talked about cisgender.
So all of this feels risky to talk about, which is interesting. In that, like, I know there are people who are going to have feelings about whatever I say about it. The idea that we teach people that transness means that their gender is different than their sex assigned at birth doesn't really make sense. You talked about that in another episode, right?
I fucking hate it, but yes.
And yeah. So cisgender to me is like, so what? It means that my gender is aligned in a way that works with the assumed expectations of how I present my gender.
Which is why I also hate cisgender. Just so people know, I hate them equally because as a concept, I don't think it works. As a way to try to not hate trans and cis as the concepts they currently are, I've been trying to like retool them in my head. And I have to say, I don't know how to make them not a binary.
Well, that's where I get stuck.
Yeah. I don't know how to make that a spectrum.
Yeah.
I've jokingly said for my friends who don't deny that they're cisgender, but also use, you know, the non-binary umbrella or an identity that falls under that as like an expansion pack of sorts. I joke, what are they, cis plus? Are they cis spicy? I don't fucking know. Like, and we don't need a new word. You know how I feel about this.
Absolutely.
Again, I just can't get out of cis and trans being a binary. I have no other way of seeing it.
Yeah. It's comforting to me to hear you talk about it too, because when I have these thoughts, I'm then like, oh shit, I can't tell anybody that. You know, when there are so many trans people who feel really connected to that identity and also feel that they've been persecuted in many ways because of that identity, I don't want to take that away from anybody.
Right. We've had ancestors who have died for us to have the privilege of this language and stuff.
Absolutely. So it's so complicated.
It's like a gift, right? I don't have to accept it. And so I can appreciate and acknowledge it. That's part of our evolution of how we talk about these things. And I can also critique it and say that for someone like me, where this isn't fitting anymore and it doesn't make sense to me anymore, and I don't know that it ever really did, I need something more evolved to really like and capture that experience.
And so that's where femme to me just kind of clicks in a way where I'm like, yeah, but it also is in relationship with queerness.
Anyone can tap into that energy.
Yeah.
If that resonates.
That's why I like it. Because much like queerness, it feels kind of so much more expansive and allows for different iterations of what that looks like.
And I'm going to ask you first, do you think masc or masculine has the same energy?
No.
Yeah. It's weird because I immediately think of toxic masculinity. It's so loud currently that that's what I think of as the default.
Which is sad.
Like, how do you get a healthy masculinity going? Like a soft masculinity or...
Yeah. And I love a soft mask. Yeah,
we're just leaving it at that.
I'm going to take us a little bit somewhere else also, which is that part of why I like femme is that I see it as a more empowered version of saying woman. The language of woman and how we define that also has a lot of negative connotations. I was just blown away when I did the gender identity challenge of women's responses of like, I know I'm a woman because of the ways in which I've been oppressed. You know, I've been assaulted or experienced being talked over and looked past for different opportunities and all these things that I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, this is a bummer.
Well, so those not familiar with it, can you tell us more about that challenge?
Absolutely. I made a post, it's probably been a couple years now, that was inspired by a post from the account Transgender Together. I asked people to define their gender and then explain how they know they are that gender without using gendered terminology or anatomical language. So you can't say, I know I'm a man because I have whatever body part, or I know I'm a woman because I'm one of the girls. The overwhelming response from people was like, this is really hard, which was exactly the point. Well, that was the point. And also that most folks came to the kind of conclusion that they were like, I just know, which to me is a teachable moment of like, well, if we're going to accept that answer from cis folks, then we better accept that answer from everybody, right? And we need to stop questioning when people are in transition of like, how long have you known? When did you know? Is it been since you were 5 years old, as if that somehow legitimizes someone's identity? Most folks don't know why. And I love these questions. It's just this recognition of people starting to unpack that, like, we've been handed these labels and categories and often don't think much about them or haven't been, in spaces where they've ever been questioned.
I've struggled a lot with femme as a concept, or just even femininity, and I do think those are different. But when I medically transitioned, it got a lot easier for me to tap into femme parts of myself or femininity, because it wasn't like the stick I was being measured by anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like how very unladylike I was and how bad that was, and a lot of like trying to force me into this gender box that didn't fit. But now I feel a lot more comfortable exploring that, and just, I don't know, like, more than anything, I just want people to see me as Chris Angel and not try to put me in any sort of gender box or have any sort of like expectations for me when it comes to how I perform my gender or sexuality or anything.
I guess I'm curious what you see as the difference between femme and femininity. Because I agree there is a difference. I'm just curious.
Femme feels more like a core energy that someone is tapping into. And I think the way I've internalized femininity, and again, this is all just out of my butt right now, I feel like femininity is maybe more superficial, more outward appearing, like maybe how I choose to express myself with clothing, nails, makeup, things like that. I think that's how I've internalized it, but I haven't like looked up definitions for the two of those to see if I'm onto something. It's just, again, how I've internalized it.
No, I think I would say something similar.
Well, hot damn. Something that's been interesting is just like watching the way that, again, you take on femme energy in your own way has just been really great for me, because if I had to box you, which I don't want to, but if I had to, I'd also consider you more of like a power femme. And the only thing I mean by that really is, you're welcome. What I really mean about that is just like, you've really grown into yourself, and you just have this like confidence and radiance about you that I think feels almost like going against the grain or something, just thinking about the patriarchy and all of that. And yeah, so I don't know. And I'm not saying it's because you're like tapping into masculinity or masculine energy or anything like that. It's your femme. It's just like power femme. I don't know. Femme on steroids. I don't know. There's something there.
I'm into it. I like power femme.
Yeah. And not that you can't have like softness and everything about you too or whatever. And I think that can be for any of, again, the energies that we're putting out there. But
absolutely,
it's been really cool to witness in you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It makes me think of when I was living in an RV, it requires driving a very large pickup truck. And so I went to get my haircut. I showed up in my giant pickup truck to meet this stylist who I'd never met before. We had a great conversation, and actually it was a really affirming experience. She was one of the first people who like didn't know much about my life otherwise. And so she just assumed that I was in a relationship with someone who was a woman or non-binary, and was like truly blown away and disappointed when she found out I was married to a man. But she was like, oh my God, I like love your whole vibe. And I just feel like you're giving me this energy that's like truck lady. And I was like, oh, truck lady. Okay. Like, I get that. I feel that. Like, I never thought I would be a truck lady, but there's that balance of like, of like power femme.
Yeah.
And so it made me think about truck lady. You can cut this out.
No, I'm not. We're leaving this in for sure.
She's a fantastic stylist. Yeah. Thank you, Joey. I do attribute a lot of that confidence. I mean, I think it's evolved over time, but I was raised by really powerful women.
Mm-hmm. It shows.
Like all of the women in my family, right? And like, it's very matriarchal. Yeah, I think about that sometimes in trying to understand other women, which I'm always trying to do. What happened that was different for me that I haven't felt like I needed to be meek or quiet or make myself smaller?
Yeah, especially that piece.
Yeah, that was never modeled for me. I mean, the only way that came up was because I was so freaking tall. Um,
Yes.
for those listening, I'm 5'10".
I'm 5'11". Aw.
Yeah. But I hit 5 feet in fifth grade and all the boys were shorter than me and it was weird.
Oh, yeah. I towered over my whole second grade class. It was
Oh my God,
hysterical. I'll show
yes.
you a photo
Yeah.
sometime.
And I joke that's why I was very popular in middle school because all the boys were at boob height to me. And I developed early. So,
Well.
but it's just what it is.
Yep.
But I mean, that's probably the only way I've ever desired to make myself smaller. But it really does come from witnessing the women who raised me really take up space and be like badass. Give yourself some space to think about what being a femme means to you and how you want to demonstrate that, if at all. Checking in on so many of the things that are kind of automatic and habitual and being like, do I like that? Like, even recently, I was like, I own a shocking number of pencil skirts and I never wear them. Like, truly shocking. Like more than 10, probably.
Oh
Like,
my
why?
gosh.
How did that happen? I don't know how it happened.
Okay.
Right. And same with heels. And when I am really honest with myself, especially from a sensory standpoint, I don't like the feeling of wearing a lot of the things that are considered feminine, like dangly stuff or like lots of bracelets. Like I own a lot of accessories that I don't ever wear, that I've been thinking about that lately of like, why is that? And I'm like, is it because I don't take the time to adorn myself in this way? And I'm like, no, I hate the way it feels.
Yeah.
Like I love it visually. So I think noticing some of those things and giving yourself permission to move away from whatever is not serving you.
With your parent coaching, the first part of the question I want to ask you is, what's the most popular question you get asked?
Is probably if it's something they're going to grow out of.
I was afraid it was going to be something like that, or like if they did something wrong.
Yep, that one comes up too.
Yeah. What do you wish parents asked more of instead?
How can I better show up for my child? Even if this was a phase, which it almost never is.
Yeah.
But even if it were, so what? This is who your kid is telling you who they are right now. Can you meet them there?
What's one allyship tip you'd like for everyone listening to consider?
Get really clear on what you're willing to lose. To really fully show up in your allyship, you have to know what you're willing to walk away from or put at risk. Will you stand up for your coworker if it means you could potentially lose your job? Will you speak up to a relative if it means there could be some kind of estranged or strained relationship? What are you willing to lose?
Rebecca, I love you. We did it, and even if it took months, it's another thing off our ever-growing to-do list, right? For folks listening, I hope it gave you something interesting to ponder, if not several things. I know I'll be processing our conversation for a while. Thank you, Rebecca. I really appreciate you and your friendship. Before I launch into the final 3 self-reflection questions, I have an announcement. Allyship as a Verb is officially Ambies nominated. It is up for Best Do-It-Yourself and also Best Personal Growth Podcast. I am floored, and I will be going to Las Vegas in March for the awards ceremony on the 7th. Voting is closed to the Podcast Academy members, and if you'd like to watch live, all of the details will be in the episode notes and on the website. And for those of you who don't know what the Ambies are, it is a podcasting awards ceremony and put on by the folks of the Podcast Academy. And just being nominated is a huge honor. And I don't even know how I'll function if we win. I'll probably cry and shake the whole way to the stage or however this works. But that said, thank you to everyone listening to this right now. You inspire me to keep going and working on this project. And thank you to the judges and TPA folks who put in the hours to make this happen. You rock. Okay, last 3 self-reflection questions to take with you. Number 4. What do I think of when I think about femme or feminine energy? What about masc or masculine energy? Are they both more positive concepts in my mind? Why or why not? Number 5. What's a piece of clothing or accessory item I own that doesn't affirm my gender or provides a negative sensory experience? Can I give it away? Number 6. What am I willing to lose to fully show up in my allyship? Visit allyshipisaverb.com for any resources and a full transcript of the episode. And remember, sometimes allyship means knowing what you're willing to lose.